Picture a long context language model chewing through a giant prompt. Every token it reads gets stored in something called the KV cache, and that cache balloons until memory becomes the real bottleneck of inference. The obvious fix is to throw old tokens away, but evict the wrong ones and quality falls off a cliff. A 2026 paper called SmallKV asks a clever question. What if a tiny model rode alongside and quietly told the big one which memories are actually worth keeping? That single idea recovers accuracy while still shrinking the cache. Let's unpack how it works. Look, the whole method is a small loop wrapped around ordinary generation. A tiny model watches, the cache gets pruned, and the big model keeps running. Follow it one stage at a time. Start with the small helper model. It runs alongside the large one, and because attention matrices stay remarkably similar across model scales, its attention scores act as a cheap stand-in. The tiny model effectively predicts which tokens the big model would care about, without paying the full cost of the big model computing all of that itself. Now the system decides what to keep. Instead of bluntly discarding everything below a threshold, it flags the globally important tokens and, crucially, the marginal ones too. The small model scores approximate those borderline entries, so the cache holds onto information that naive eviction would have thrown away and never recovered. Here the large model runs generation over the compressed cache. It attends only to the retained key value entries, so memory stays small, yet the tokens it truly needs are still present. The compensation happens quietly in the background, guiding retention rather than forcing the big model to store absolutely everything. Finally, the quality holds up. Because marginal information survives and retention can adapt as decoding proceeds, the model answers almost as well as with a full cache. The authors report throughput between 1.75 and 2.56 times higher than baseline eviction methods, so the memory savings do not cost you the answer. So why bother with a second model at all? Here's the problem it fixes, set right beside the fix. Traditional token-level eviction picks the tokens with the highest attention and permanently drops the rest. That works until attention shifts. An entry that looked useless early in decoding can suddenly matter later, but it is already gone. And by lumping marginally useful tokens in with truly useless ones, it quietly overcompresses information the model still needed. SmallKV adds a compensation layer on top. It keeps attention matched between the small and large models, letting the tiny one restore the marginal tokens and highlight the globally important ones. Eviction stops being a one-way door. The result recovers the accuracy that aggressive compression normally sacrifices, while still shrinking the memory footprint during inference. Strip it down and 3 ideas make SmallKV work. Consider what happens during decoding. Attention is not static. A token that seemed unimportant at one step can become salient a few tokens later. SmallKV's first mechanism tackles this saliency shift by using the small model to keep perceiving globally important information, so retention adapts instead of freezing after one irreversible choice. Think about the tokens in the middle. Not clearly vital, not clearly useless. Naive eviction overcompresses exactly these marginal tokens, even though collectively they carry real signal. Here, the smaller model's attention scores approximate the larger models for those borderline entries, compensating for information that would otherwise simply vanish. This all has to earn its cost. Running an extra model is not free, yet the payoff shows up in speed. Across GSM 8K, BBH, MT-Bench, and Long Bench, SmallKV holds quality while reaching throughput between 1.75 and 2.56 times higher than baseline eviction methods, which is the whole point. Alright, let's lock in what matters. SmallKV is a 2026 method that uses a small helper model to compensate for the accuracy lost when compressing a large model's KV cache during inference. It leans on a simple observation. Attention matrices are highly similar across LLMs of different scales, so the small model scores can stand in for the big ones. The method runs two compensation mechanisms. One perceives globally important tokens, and the other approximates the marginal tokens that naive eviction would carelessly overcompress and lose. Reported throughput lands between 1.75 and 2.56 times higher than baselines across GSM 8K, BBH, MTBench, and LongBench. Want more AI research decoded in plain language? Come explore it with us over at standarity.com.